In the pursuit of wealth, we must seek to preserve our health. Otherwise, we'll end up spending our wealth to regain our health. Wise thoughts there to consider today. Hi there, thanks for joining us for this edition of Jamaica Magazine. I'm Adrian Atkinson. In today's show, recognizing obesity, knowing the dangers to your health and how to deal with it. Later, we'll share with you how children with autism can achieve their best through proper education. Stay with us for these and more coming up after these messages.
The Aedes aegypti is one of several types of mosquitoes found here in Jamaica and elsewhere in the world. Know them. They are small, dark mosquitoes with white lyre-shaped markings and banded legs. The Aedes aegypti mosquito lives in and around places where people gather and breeds anywhere water settles, such as artificial containers in and around homes and other buildings. It's a vector that transmits the virus that causes a number of diseases, such as dengue, chikungunya, and the Zika virus. Find them. Destroy them. Cover water containers to prevent mosquitoes getting inside. Dispose of garbage containers to prevent water settling in them. And frequently check and empty any container that water might settle to ensure these are kept dry, and scrub vessels clean to get rid of eggs. The Aedes aegypti mosquito. Don't give it a home.
Persons with lifelong developmental disabilities such as autism find it more difficult to understand what they see, hear, and otherwise sense. This can be problematic for their social relationships, communication, and behavior. But their troubles can be minimized, starting with the right education and training, starting at an early age. Let's hear more from the Ministry of Education.
There's much more to educating our children than confining them to textbooks or curricula. Every child has their learning style, and sometimes it's made difficult when it's compounded with a learning disorder. Hello, I'm Carrie-Ann Smith. The number of diagnosed cases of autism in Jamaica is on the increase, and the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information is tasked with the responsibility of ensuring that provisions are in place to facilitate the learning of these students. With me is Acting Assistant Chief Education Officer in the Special Education Unit in the Ministry, Mrs. Ann Newman. Welcome.
Thank you, Carrie.
All right, so let's get into it. What are the numbers as it relates to the increase in autism in schools?
Okay. The Center for Disease Control in the United States suggests that there's a ratio of 1 in every 6 to 8 births. When that is applied to a Jamaican birth rate in Jamaica, it means that as many as 500 odd students or children could be born with autism.
Okay.
And it is skewed towards boys, so the ratio is 4 to 1.
All right, before we even get into exploring the issue, what is autism?
Autism spectrum disorder is a developmental disorder that's usually diagnosed by age 4. Children with autism or who are on the spectrum usually manifest some disorders in communication, social disorders, and very often have behavioral disorders.
So how is the ministry handling the cases in schools?
Well, for the cases that come to our attention, because remember that we now have a passbook that's monitored in the Early Childhood Commission years. So students coming over to main ministry would travel with their passbook, and hopefully by that time, at age 6, they would have been diagnosed. Unfortunately, some students have fell through the cracks and are not diagnosed as early. So once they're brought to our attention and there is a diagnosis, then we can do the appropriate placement. Remember I said it's a spectrum disorder, so some children have a mild case and some children more moderate or severe. Students who are on the spectrum need different interventions. So depending on the severity of the diagnosis, whether it's mild, moderate or severe, they are placed in the appropriate settings. Students with mild autism usually are educated in the mainstream, whereas others who are severe or in the moderate range are educated in our special schools.
Okay, so it's important for them to be diagnosed early.
Critical, critical, critical. Early diagnosis and intervention is the key to the measure of success we have.
Right, so now that you're talking, it seems to me it's a holistic approach because parents need to ensure that if it is that they're seeing any of these signs, that they get their children tested.
Parents need to remember that they're usually their child's first teacher, and they need to follow their instinct, and wherever they have reason to be suspicious that something could not be quite so right, it is their responsibility to seek professional advice and assistance.
All right. So what are the programs or intervention strategies that are in place to ensure that these children are not lost in the system?
Okay, again, we go back to early intervention. Right. Once students are diagnosed, then it is the responsibility of the parents, and if they're in a school program, early childhood, or wherever they may be on the continuum, it is the responsibility of the system to make the appropriate referrals. Persons can come to ministry at any time, the special education unit, for us to advise and help with placement of students.
I know that the ministry promotes an inclusive, integrated system. Are the schools prepared for this?
There is some measure of preparedness. Since 2005, all teachers in Teachers College were exposed to an introductory course in exceptionalities. This course really is just a cursory course, and it means that teachers in the regular system should be able to detect and have reasons to suspect that if a child is not developing along the normal path, and suggest to parents that they have the child assessed. Once the assessment is done and the diagnosis is made, you'll get a fulsome report that gives recommendations as to the way where the child should be educated and programs that the child will need, support programs that the child will need. In addition to the training of teachers, we now have special needs coordinators who work with the regular schools that will develop and present workshops depending on the needs in the school. And those children who are in the mainstream can be educated by specially trained special educators in pull-out classes or self-contained classes.
Okay, and how should we treat these children? You know, many times we label them as just rude, out of order. How should we even react to them?
Well, first of all, it needs an understanding. And sometimes we are not as sympathetic as we ought to be. But the first thing is, if we give unconditional love, then we will see that children who may act outside of what we consider the norm are actually having some difficulty. And we need to just be empathetic to their parents, not label them.
Thank you so much. But before we go, can you just leave us with a few tips, parents, teachers, as to how we can deal with children with autism?
I can't overemphasize. Early intervention is the best. And I would also recommend to parents, once a child has been diagnosed to be on the spectrum, that they join a support group. There's a Jamaica Autism support group, and just to get feedback and support from other parents who are in a similar situation cuts the journey in half. And to teachers, seek more information. There's always, as a professional, we always need to develop and grow. There's a lot of information on the net. Seek more information. It will make you a better professional.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Newman.
My pleasure.
Some marina, you know. Yeah?
Yeah, man, I have the pocket 60,000.
60,000?
Yeah.
How much I want?
Yeah, man, 2 days I want.
Yeah, man, no one else.
$5,000.
Yeah, man. Alright,
What one, cat?
you don't know, I sit downtown the other day there.
Oh.
All the brethren in them man we buy and sell marina. One of them I sell a 6-pack for $1,000 and the next one I sell one for $200.
So where buy?
Buy 5 of them for $1,000. Think them can't rob me.
So Uncle Fancy is the same $1,000 you would spend to get the 6? Seriously?
Tell them again now, my math brains.
Math count.
Math counts.
Sponsored by the Ministry of Education.
Don't make diseases spread. Wash your hands with soap and water instead. Wash them regular or use a hand sanitizer. Make sure the germs them dead. Touching your eyes or your mouth or your nose. Wash your hands before you do things like those. After you use the bathroom before preparing food, come on, wash your hand them clean.
Persons who are overweight and or obese face major health risks, which are avoidable if they develop healthy lifestyle habits. What those risks are and what we need to do to stay healthy are explained in this next feature.
Overweight is defined as having an excess amount of body weight, but that can occur from increased amounts of muscle, bone, fat, or water, whereas obesity is defined as having an excess amount of body fat.
The excess fat that leads to a diagnosis of obesity mainly occurs when the body takes in more calories from foods than it is able to burn through exercise and normal daily activities. The result is a major health threat, as obesity is usually accompanied by other issues such as type 2 diabetes mellitus and non-communicable diseases such as hypertension, heart disease, stroke, and various cancers.
Obese men are more likely than non-obese men to die of cancers of the colon, rectum, and prostate, and obese women are more likely than non-obese women to die of cancers of the gallbladder, breast, cervix, uterus, and ovaries. There are other conditions like gallbladder disease of different kinds, which are associated with obesity.
Infertility and poor quality of life can also result. So diagnosis and management of obesity is of enormous significance.
And there are ways to assess it. The commonest way to assess obesity is by using what we call the body mass index, or BMI. And the BMI is essentially your body weight in kilograms divided by your height in meters squared. And we have scales to judge what your weight status would be. Less than 18.5 BMI would be considered to be underweight. Normal weight is 18.5 to 24.9. 25 to 29.9 would be considered to be overweight, and BMIs of greater than 30 are all considered to be obese.
It's generally easier to gain weight than it is to lose it, which means avoiding practices that lead to excess fat consumption is the easiest route to avoiding obesity. But if you're already overweight, the process may be difficult, but it is achievable. You may need help from physicians, nutritionists, physical trainers, and even therapists, so you should seek them out if that's the case. Either way, most experts will tell you that weight loss requires behavioral change, lifestyle changes that are gradual and long-term.
The problem in our society, of course, is the same as anywhere else. Less physical activity, we're working harder, we don't have time to schedule exercise, and of course, unhealthy eating habits. So more fast food, less fruits and vegetables, less freshly prepared foods, and consumption of large amounts of sugar-sweetened beverages. So this is what fuels it.
Eating healthy helps to keep us healthy. Are you thinking about what would be a healthy and balanced meal, but just can't decide on what foods you should be having? Jamaica's food-based dietary guidelines can provide you with answers. The guideline from the Ministry of Health provides information for individuals, health professionals, nutrition educators, and the food industry. It encourages a daily diet of items from all the food groups. That should include fruits and vegetables, as well as peas and beans and nuts. And the things we ought to avoid are clear: excess salt, that is more than the daily recommended amount, as well as fats and oils and sugary foods and drinks. Also,
if you lead a sedentary lifestyle, then it's very easy for you to become obese because you're not going to be able to burn off the calories that you take in. And of course, if you eat unhealthily, you're more likely to become obese because your body's going to store all these excess calories as fat.
So one of the ways to counteract obesity is to engage in regular physical exercise, like going for brisk walks, jogging, swimming, or riding a bicycle. Regular exercises like these burn calories and get rid of excess fat and weight, helping to control blood cholesterol, blood sugar, and even high blood pressure. Experts in health services say children can be set up to become obese later in life. The Ministry of Health is working to address these issues as it focuses on key strategies to improve overall maternal and child health services. Don't be weighted down by obesity. Take charge of your good health. Eat well, exercise, and get about the business of living well.
When you're on the road, take your time. When you're on the road, bear this in mind. When you're on the road, you could save a life when you're on the road.
You can lower your salt intake by checking the labels when buying processed and packaged foods. Compare products and choose the options lower in salt. A low salt option should have less than 120 milligrams of sodium per 100 grams of food. Reduce the salt and increase your consumption of fresh unprocessed foods. When cooking and at the table, use herbs, spices, and other seasonings to give you great flavor and taste. A public service message from the Jamaica Information Service and the Ministry of Health.
On the board this week, the Jamaica Cultural Development Commission, JCDC, will be having its grand coronation for the Manchester Festival Prince and Festival Princess on Sunday, March 20 at the Manchester Parish Library Cultural Centre, the Cecil Chartered Hall at Hargreaves Avenue in Mandeville. Showtime 6 p.m. Also, the public is invited to the JCDC's Jamaica Children's Gospel Song Competition semi-final concert on Sunday, March 20. The concert will be held at the Olson Memorial Chapel, 35 Hope Road, Kingston 10, starting at 5 p.m. Come out and take a donation in the form of tokens in support of outreach program for children's homes. Citizens of Clarendon are encouraged to get involved in cleanup activities in the fight against Zika virus and other mosquito-borne diseases. Join the Clarendon Health Department and Youth Ministries Department at the Central Jamaica Conference of Seventh-day Adventists for a major cleanup campaign in the town and its surroundings this Sunday, March 20. In addition to the cleanup activities, come for free health checks that will be provided at the Maypen Seventh-day Adventist Church. The Ministry of Health is reminding citizens to search in and around their home and general environment for mosquito breeding sites weekly and destroy them. Organize cleanup campaigns and use mosquito repellents, mosquito nets, and proper clothing to protect against mosquito bites. For more information, contact 1-888-1-LOVE. That's 1-888-663-5683 or 663-7914. Also visit your parish health department or the Ministry of Health website at moh.gov.jm. And that's all for our community notices today. Send us your events for broadcast on the JIS Community Notice Board. Call 922-868-022 or send an email to cbishop@jis.gov.jm.
This is the Aedes aegypti mosquito that spreads the Zika, chikungunya, and dengue viruses. Protect yourself from the bite of this mosquito. A message from the Ministry of Health.
Top stories from the week are next.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness has directed his cabinet ministers to be efficient as government moves to deliberate on matters in the public interest.
We must take decisions quickly while examining all the perspectives of the matter before us. We must be the cascading example for efficiency in the public sector.
The Prime Minister was addressing the first sitting of the new cabinet on Tuesday. The Economic Program Oversight Committee, EPOC, has reported that tax revenue at the end of January was $3.8 billion ahead of target. Despite this, total revenues are $1 billion behind target, contributing to the primary balance being $1.6 billion behind target. Nonetheless, the Economic Program Oversight Committee is optimistic that the country will meet the primary balance target.
Especially since the Minister of Finance has given us the assurance that in February they pull back on the expenditure. So I expect that the small 1.6 difference between the primary balance, actual and budget will not be a problem for us.
Finance Minister Audley Shaw has signaled that persons earning above $1.5 million will not be left out of government's plan to provide greater equity in income distribution. The administration had previously committed that persons earning up to $1.5 million would not pay income tax in the new fiscal year.
Even as we want to start with those below $1.5 million earning, we know that those just above 1.5 million and onwards to 5 million are also stressed out, and we are going to be dealing with them as well.
The Health Ministry continued its response to the influenza A H1N1 virus this week, taking the policy decision to expand its importation of the flu vaccine.
We recognize the need to cover all healthcare workers and to ensure that it's available, the flu vaccine that is, to persons in high-risk groups. And that would include the elderly, persons, women who are pregnant, children, and those with chronic illnesses like asthma, high blood pressure, diabetes.
The ministry has also written to the pharmaceutical importer of Tamiflu, giving them permission to stock not just the health ministry, but hospital and all private pharmacies as well.
We want to really encourage the high-risk persons. If you're asthmatic and you come in with a flu, your physician now doesn't need to send you to a hospital in order to get it, which is how it was until today. But you're now able to write a prescription, and of course we expect that the pharmaceutical distributors will be bringing in more to make it more available.
Earlier in the week, Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton toured the newly upgraded virology lab at the University of the West Indies, which has made Jamaica fully equipped to test for H1N1, chikungunya, Zika, and other viruses. The new state-of-the-art real-time thermal equipment acquired for the lab has the capacity to test 96 samples and controls within 2 hours and is also capable of testing multiple pathogens in one sample.
The waiting period to determine infection has been significantly reduced because previously cases had to be sent overseas.
On Thursday, the ministry confirmed Jamaica's second and third cases of the Zika virus based on tests at the lab. In other health news, the portfolio minister revealed this week that the ministry was taking steps to ease the current shortage of specialist nurses in the public health sector.
We have to develop a strategy, firstly to train more persons, secondly to engage in our own collaboration with our other friendly countries in the past like Cuba and India, where we can have exchange programs to recruit some of their own specialists because their training pool is a lot bigger, and other creative ways, looking at the retirement pool and perhaps bringing persons, many of them who themselves practice in countries in North America and in England, who have retired back home and who can still play a role even on a temporary basis, looking at that as an option.
Thousands of young people sat this year's Grade 6 achievement test, with the Education Ministry reporting no major hiccups. On the first day of the exams, Education Minister Senator Ruel Reid met with some students and later asserted that the Primary Exit Profile PEP examination, which will replace GSAT, will better prepare students for high school.
We soon be moving to the Primary Exit examination, which will be more rigorous and robust, but the advantage of that is the student will be much better prepared for the high school curriculum. So, it's not just the raw numbers we're looking at. We're looking at ensuring the students are properly prepared to move on from one section of the education system to the next.
And finally, government will be introducing legislated gender quotas to address the lack of proportional representation of women in Parliament.
And also underrepresentation in local authorities and other positions of leadership to increase the participation by women in the relevant branches of governance, political decision-making, and socio-economic organizations.
The Gender Affairs Minister also announced the revision and amendments to existing legislation, which in some cases are archaic and discriminatory,
to make them gender neutral and compliant with the language and guiding principles in the National Policy for Gender Equality, as well as commitments to regional and international agreements.
These measures are among 8 key priorities for action which Minister Grange said would be rolled out during the short term. And those were some of the stories making news this week. I'm Simone Wolf.
Trisha, you know how to talk to them, change them now and look like foreign taxi.
And the yellow and black stripe and the glow up on the rooftop really make it easy for the passenger to know which one legit.
And my taxi friend Bobby told me that he had to put it on in order to renew his license. Plus, the new drivers need it in order to get their road license. They have to have the correct color code, FFDE00.
I am Everton Style, President of the Corporate Area Taxi Association. Hackney Carriage Operators, get your vehicles color-coded and fitted with the globe now.
It keeps our bodies working, our food nutritious, our living and working spaces clean, and our lives comfortable. Water, the most precious resource necessary for the sustenance of life on our planet. Don't waste it. Let's conserve on this critical commodity. In the house, invest in storage containers and buckets. Take quick showers instead of long baths, and invest in water-efficient shower heads, toilets, and faucets. You may also want to consider one-pot meals and cooking methods that don't require much water. You could also wash fruits and vegetables in a bowl and reuse the water on your plants or grass. When cleaning dishes, fill both sinks and use one for washing and the other for rinsing. The leftover water can be used to wash off the concrete or asphalt in your yard. If you must wash your car at home, aim for once a fortnight and use a bucket to do the washing instead of running the hose. Don't delay. Start your water conservation practices today.
And that brings us to the end of today's edition of Jamaica Magazine. We value your feedback, so keep the link. Tell us what you thought of the show. Send an email to jamaicamagazine@jis.gov.jm or hit us up on Twitter @JISnews. Also, click on our website, jis.gov.jm, for more programs, and our YouTube channel, Watch JIS. Until next time, I'm Adrian Atkinson reminding you to take care of your health, eat well, exercise, get adequate rest, and join us again tomorrow for more information you can use.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.